Hello everyone, and welcome back to Acupuncture is My Life. Now, today's topic of discussion is coming from Helen in Portugal. Okay, she has two children that are in college. One is attending the University of South Africa, and another is here in the United States, and she's attending the University of Minnesota. And we'd engaged in a private chat session, and if anyone cares to engage in private chat sessions to have discussions or topics brought up over podcasts, over the Acupuncture is My Life podcast, just simply download the app, the Acupuncture is My Life app from the Google Play Store. And your topic can be mentioned over the air and we can have a detailed discussion. Now, Helen from Portugal, we had an interesting, I think it's an hour and some change, like an hour and 20 minute back and forth chat session about potential treatment, acupuncture treatment for her children, her two children, one being at the University of South Africa and the other at the University of Minnesota, because they're very stressed. They're going through a lot, and as she talks with them, she understands these are unusual times. These are times that she herself have had some struggle with mentally, and her children have never faced, such uncertainty before in their lives. And I know her and her husband, as a result of our conversation, have been struggling to find a coping mechanism for them, and have been following Acupuncture is My Life for a little over a month now. And after having followed us on every social media platform, they listened to podcasts, watched YouTube, the YouTube channel under Acupuncture is My Life, they felt that it would be of benefit to contact us to talk further about potential coping mechanisms for their children. And lo and behold, she was excited about the chat sessions she's had with Acupuncture is My Life, and hopes the advice that we've given her will be of benefit to her children. And this is why I say, follow us on all of our social media platforms, because we have a variation of different things on different platforms. It's not always the same information being put out on every platform. So it's important that you follow us on all platforms, because there's so much information that we put out there that is and can be of benefit to you or a loved one, or just simply someone you may know that you feel that you may be able to help or steer them in the right direction. But it's interesting to see the numbers behind how this pandemic has affected college students, the effect that it's had on college students mentally. In doing our own research here at Acupuncture is My Life, it's been noted that in excess of 71% of college students surveyed indicated, they felt an increase in stress and anxiety due to this pandemic, because multiple stressors, were identified. that contributed to the increased levels of stress, depressive thoughts, and anxiety among students. And these stressors included worry and fear about their own health and the health of loved ones, especially their parents who have pre-existing conditions. I mean, think about it. As a college student, you're going away, just as in the case of Helen from Portugal. Her two children are attending undergraduate institutions on different continents. I mean, think about the fear or concern that they have, for both parents, because both parents are dealing with blood pressure issues and diabetes combined. And they understand how this virus affects people with comorbidities, and then you have all of these mutations taking place in different countries. You'll have the P1 in Brazil, but you'll have the UK strain, and then you have another strain in South Africa. And then they have to be concerned, and they are concerned as to when they come home. Are they carrying? Can they possibly transmit, although testing negative, a virus, a strain or a variant of the virus to their parents? And sometimes they discuss of not coming home for a couple of years or until their undergraduate studies are complete, in hopes that this pandemic is done, in hopes that it doesn't downgrade to an epidemic and to epidemic status. It's like, what happens? What are these students, what are these children to think? So there's a lot of stress, out there. And 91% of students globally reported negative impacts of the pandemic. 89% expressed difficulty concentrating. Upwards of 86% expressed disruptions in sleep patterns. Now, I get that a lot at the Acupuncture's My Life clinic. So many individuals, not just college students, people that are working remote, circadian rhythm is off, which is of concern, because this negatively impacts your health. A good night's sleep, immunity, enhanced immunity, go hand in hand. If you're not going to sleep by a certain time and just having a restful sleep to allow your body to recuperate, to regenerate, to detoxify, allow for the liver and kidneys to do what these two organs need to do overnight, so that when you awaken the next morning and the excretion of all, of these wastes from your body, this is a process that we have to undergo. We undergo and take for granted the amazing functions of our bodies in order to keep us healthy, to keep us alive. You college students are also dealing with decreased social interactions due to physical distancing, and that number is even pretty high. It's roughly in the mid to upper 80s. And there's even increased concerns relative to academic performance. Because of anxiety issues, sleep deprivation. These are concerns, and a lot of us, as adults, we overlook what college students are going through. I mean, they're at a point in their life, for the most part, transitioning into adulthood. And there are stresses that a lot of us have undergone in this transition process. And we weren't faced with a pandemic. We weren't faced with restrictions of these sorts that can hamper our growth. I mean, you can stunt a young adult's growth by restricting the way in which they socialize. Because as humans, we're social creatures. Many don't understand that that's, a base, a foundation, a platform as to how we grow, how we learn. It's not all textbook. This is why college campuses or children going to school is important. The social aspect of it is what allows us to learn the way we should as human beings. So everyone's home or confined to a dorm room with crazy restrictions. And how do you social distance? When you do have schools that are open, very limited classroom activity. From my understanding, for the most part, her children are attending labs, but everything else is online. So they're in the dorms. They're still getting together because they're bunched together. But being told constantly to social distance, how does that work? So because she has the Acupuncture's My Life app, she gets free access to telehealth. And through a telehealth session, I went over a few acupressure points that she can show her children to do when they're feeling stressed. And then I briefly communicated with Chef Kiara regarding types of foods that's great, or teas that's great for stress. So I went over that with her, with Helen as well. She was very excited, to be able to take this back to her children. I'm anxious to see how it all came together. But these are the benefits in following Acupuncture's My Life and downloading the app. These are just a few of the benefits. There's so much. But you see, after going over certain acupressure points that she can show her children, and different herbal teas and foods that they can snack on, when I get feedback from her in a few weeks, I'll do an episode. I'll make this, a second part. I'll do a second part to this podcast. But we can't overlook what college students are going through. The challenges that they're faced with. They're attempting to live out their dreams, to learn whatever specialty or whatever they've decided they wanted to do in life. But now we have these restrictions that they're faced with, which in some ways they feel is hampering their growth potential. Fall of 2020 showed a global 3.8% drop in college enrollment. You have people doing gap years because they want that on-campus socialization component to learning. Forget online. But this is a year away from their, productive years. Minus 1 year. They're home. I can only imagine. A lot of these young adults are stagnant right now. The restrictions of this pandemic. How is it affecting them? Being left to have to cope with stress and anxiety and seeking support from others. How does your average college student adapt to negative or positive coping mechanisms? How? There are tons of parents out here that don't know how to approach or deal with this issue. And some are turning to acupuncture as my life for answers. This is why I say, you have to be proactive about your health. Not just yours, but even the health of loved ones. Now, if we work together as a community, we can resolve the issue that we're faced with on a grand scale much quicker by working together. Because the healthier we are and we learn how to cope, how to deal with this problem, or the problems arising as a result of this pandemic, the quicker we can get through this together and move on. And notice how I said move on. I'm not saying return to normal, because as I've stated in the past, I don't like it. Just sounds so regressive. This is just a problem we're faced with, and we'll get past it as a community. More and more running out to get the vaccine. And if you feel, that'll help you get through this, then, it's your choice. But statistically, more and more people are seeking out acupuncture and acupuncturists to help them get through this. And I'm impressed with that. Yes, sit with your primary care physician, your doctor, your psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever medical specialist you feel you need to sit with to help you get through this. But also sit with an acupuncturist, because you'll be surprised as to how much of a benefit acupuncture can be in assisting you with dealing with the present issues that are arising as a result of this pandemic. And again, if you can't find an acupuncturist, reach out to Acupuncture is My Life. We're here for you. it's not just parents or adults who are past their college days. But we're here for college students too. Because many students who once worked on campus, went away to school, they're struggling with the income loss because on-campus jobs just aren't there or as fruitful as they once were due to restrictions. Some colleges are even closed altogether. But then you have those that are allowing for dorming so they can access the library, hang out in their dorm rooms, do online learning, and get some sort of campus life going or happening. But the on-campus jobs just aren't there. Whether it's on campus or immediately off campus, with different types of small businesses that cater to campus life. So they're also struggling with income loss. And how do they make up for that? Because most college students don't like to depend on their parents. And then you have students where on-campus housing just isn't happening right now. And they looked at that as a form of permanent housing or housing of some sort. Where do they go? What do they do? A lot of them, like I said, if there are no jobs available to them, on off-campus living, how do they afford that? Some students pay for on-campus housing with their student loans. So it's interesting. What about international students and travel bans imposed? Some international students having to stay home and learn online. Not everyone is into virtual learning. We have to understand that not everyone is into virtual learning. There's good and bad with everything. But, the social aspect is just really not there. You can go into your private chat rooms and so forth and so on, but it's not the same. So think about how these restrictions and play into anxiety issues, depressive issues. You have students concerned about spring break. What's spring break going to be like? Spring break is huge for today's college students because their travels tend to be more global than local. And in living in a global society, this is necessary, although it's for leisure. Think of, let's say, 50 years ago. This phobia for traveling, intermingling with other cultures, as opposed to now, where it's a necessity, living in a global society. Many adults look at college students and laugh, oh, they just want to party on spring break. With how things have evolved, that is necessary. Because even in your average place of employment, you have many different cultures that you encounter. And these travels during your college years tends to open up a college student's mind to other cultures. And that's important because later in life in the workplace, it's easy to adapt to a large variation of cultures. There's so much to this subject. You know, there's a reason why Helen and I were engaged in a private chat session for over an hour. There's a reason for that. Because there's just so much to cover with this. But my recommendation to parents of college students: sit with them, talk, contact Acupuncture's My Life, contact your local acupuncturist to discuss ways in which acupuncture can help your child. Because as parents, I'm sure, we all want our children to succeed in life. And again, it's about being proactive. Take a second. Give this subject some thought. Reach out to your children. Because some parents aren't even discussing with their children what they may be going through. And it's important that you do so. Take a second and sit with your children and just talk about what problems they may be facing, and would they be open to acupuncture or acupressure or making adjustments to their diets and things of that nature. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how much you can help them as well. But other than that, guys, stay safe. Follow us on all social media platforms. And until next time, acupuncture is my life. What's yours?